Welcome back in, guys, to the King Josiah TV podcast, where the show was created to educate, promote, and influence the kingdom of Jesus Christ in this world. If you're listening, guys, on YouTube, do me a favor. Go ahead and smash the subscribe button before we get started. Go ahead and give me a like. If you're listening audibly on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that follow button before we get into it, guys. But let's go ahead and jump into today's show.
Minority, flexing my God and all of his authority. Practice was preaching purity, priority. Can't conform to it, even if maturity. Choose to go that way, God has been restoring me. They grilling the boy, cause I won't let them George forming me. Try to put me in a box, I got off the ropes, I won't let them corner me. God has been warning me, tell his people ain't no room for lukewarming me. Order me, Lord, it be your will, it never was mine. Like Amazon Prime, his turnaround time around prayer.
All right, guys, with a heavy heart, again, we're going to talk about a subject that came as a surprise to me. But George Foreman died about a week ago. George Foreman was a heavyweight champion of the world 2 times. Came back initially, won it when he was younger, lost to Muhammad Ali, and then later on regained it at the age of 45, I believe, and came back and won again. George Foreman was a man of God, and his testimony is just so strong. How God brought him from a place where he thought he was a man on top of the world, being the heavyweight champion of the world, having all the money, all the accolades, being respected by everybody. He believed in, being a man of God. I believe in God was weak. And so he had an encounter with God, and he spent the rest of his life in service to God. And the mighty things that God did in George Foreman's life, I believe, is a powerful testimony. It says a lot about how to run the race as a Christian successfully and how we should do that. So I did want to show some light on this and show some allegiance to George Foreman and his passing. So we're going to listen to his testimony first. A lot of you probably know about George Foreman. I'd be surprised if you don't, but we're going to listen to George's testimony here.
The champion at that time was Muhammad Ali. He had to face me if I won this elimination bout. And I went 12 rounds. I was pretty content, sad that I lost the decision, but I truly felt like I won. I went back to the dressing room to cool off, and that's where life changed. I walked back and forward for the first time trying to cool off, and thoughts, you don't have to worry about that boxing match. You're still George Foreman. You can go to your ranch. You got money. You got TV shows. You can go to your ranch and retire and die. And I never could lose that thought. You're gonna die. You're gonna die. And in the dirty old dressing room, when I had all these wonderful homes, I was about to die. And I heard a voice within me say, "You believe in God. Why are you scared to die?" And I was afraid.
And I want to play this, read this verse to you guys. I was looking up that, it just came to remembrance, says George is talking here, and just to kind of keep people up if people don't understand where this testimony starts is his one of the bouts he had, and when he first had his interaction with God, God interceded on him, and he had a near-death situation. And when he talked about his pride, and those are the things that the God says the pride of life is the things that are our downfall. And pride is one thing, and the love of self and the self-glorification of things, which is what allowed Satan to fall from heaven, is a trap that a lot of us fall into, especially when we're successful. So I just want to read from John 1, 2 and 6. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, the pride of your life, which you have, the homes, things, and accolades that George had accrued at that time, is not of the Father, but it is of the world. And these are the things that pull us away.
I was scared. I tried to walk back and forward, shake it off, but it wouldn't go off. And I realized it was God talking with me. I didn't believe in religion. I thought that was for, you got to be a sissy. Everybody who had taken up religion in those days had lost a wife, a husband, a boxing match, and they were carrying their Bibles as a baby. And I wasn't going to go in.
And that's the thing. A lot of times God does visit us at our weakest points. A lot of people, it takes them being crippled to their knees. A lot of people, it takes them going through a tragic situation to when they really surrender and be like, God, I need you. And that's just a human flaw that happens. And I'm glad he pointed that out. It's funny, but it's true. A lot of us, it takes us being completely knocked out and taken out for us to fully surrender to God. And that's what happened to George.
and take on religion. But I tried to make a deal in that dressing room. I said, I'm still George Foreman, and everyone is looking at me right within my thoughts. I can still box and give money to charity and for cancer. And I heard a voice say, I don't want your money, I want you. And I remember tears. First time I'd heard anyone turn down money, number one. So there I was. I'd lost the fight of my life. My leg gave out on me. And looked around the room and told everybody, hey, y'all, I'm fixing, before I could say another word, I was out of this life in a big, big dog dump yard of nothingness. Over my head, under my feet, there was nothing. And I got mad because, everyone else had pets of Dobermans. I had lions and tigers. I was tough. I said, I don't care if this is death. I still believe there's a God. When I said that, I was snatched out of nothingness, alive in the dressing room, blood flowing through my face. But then I saw blood flowing, coming down my forehead, and I hadn't been cut from the match, and on my hand. And I started screaming. I haven't stopped to this day. Jesus Christ is coming alive in me. That's what happened to me in that dressing room.
How did people respond when you started talking about Jesus?
Most everybody, I was ashamed of it myself. I was champion of the world, and people are going to say, he must be scared to fight. He's coming up with an excuse. Even my parents thought I had lost my mind. And I thought I had lost my mind too, but you never forget the smell of death.
Yeah, of course.
It's like a horrible smell. Even when I'm speaking with you, I don't want to think of that. To be nothing, there was hopelessness. That's all I had in this dark place.
And that's why it's important to have a relationship with God. That's why people act like, being separated from God and living in this world, not having a relationship with God, not accepting Jesus into your heart is small potatoes or a small thing. Being separated from God, what you're just talking about, being a place of nothingness. He said, I don't even want to think about that. We don't realize all the blessings, all the pleasures, all the things that we enjoy in this life now. Any of the goodness is all God. It all comes from God. Any amount of comfort that you have in this world, big or small, it all comes from God. And leaving this world without God, all that will be taken from you, and you will be apart from God. Everything apart from God is the complete opposite of that, a complete opposite of peace, love, fulfillment. All those things will be gone. And that is something why when it comes to salvation, when it comes to preaching the word of God is so important, because salvation and death are both real. And so if you do not have your salvation and you die and you enter into that next stage of life and you step into eternity without God, you'll be separated from God for an eternity, which is nothing that you would wish on your worst enemy. That's why it's so imperative that we preach the gospel. That's why it's so imperative that we make this an important thing, not just something that just people that are weak have.
I was given a chance to live again. A lot of people thought I was crazy to walk away from boxing because I was at the height of my career, but I walked away because I didn't know what else to do. For 10 years, I didn't make a fist. I just preached. Was ordained in the 70s and went on to become a full-time preacher and stayed there until 87.
Let's talk about that preaching career. Tell us how that's developed.
Well, I'm an evangelist, and I know I'm an evangelist, and I know exactly what my calling is. And people ask me, what is your calling? I said, just to be myself. God gave me a second chance to live, and to live and show people there's a life beyond fame and fortune. You can be the best human being there is, and it's impossible to be a good human being without God injecting Jesus Christ into your life.
You must have some kind of wife. I mean,
as God says, Jesus said, no man is good. No man is good but God. I want to read a verse. He just brought to my memory a verse there. Where is it at? I had it. I think I have it here on my phone, guys, because that's a great reference there. And Jesus said, it comes from Mark 10 and 18. And Jesus said unto him, why callest thou me good? There is no one good but the one that is God. There's no amount of good, there's no amount of good in us that will allow us to be good on our own. We need Jesus. We need his covering of our sins. And again, that self pride is something that pulls us away from God. We've got to realize that we need God, that God is our driving force, that God is the one that is the one that can cleanse us and bring us to righteousness. So I'm just glad that George said that. That was good stuff.
Must be very special. Tell us about it.
Oh, my wife. To give you the story, I was very successful with the George Foreman grill.
Yeah.
And I didn't
I had
want
me
to be
one.
bothered with that because people were always offering me a
My parents had like two of them. We had two of them in the house. My brother had one. I think when I first moved to my first apartment, I had one. Man, George Foreman's were legit. They were legit.
product or something. I
Yeah.
was already successful on Madison Avenue. And everyone said, George, are you going to do the grill? And I said, I don't know about these things. My wife said, it works, George. So she showed me how to fix a burger on that thing. It was still juicy. The grease went out. I said, it really works. She said, you should do that. Whatever you do, see if they'll give you a few. And I did an endorsement following my wife just to get 16 grills. And we ended up selling over 100 million of those things. But that's to tell you a lot about my wife. She's smart. Even when I wanted to box some more, I told her, you think those guys can beat me? You don't believe I still have it? I can still do this. She said, isn't that the way you want to leave the sport, feeling like you can do it, George? And if you don't have a wife who's smart, you'll stay in the boxing until you can't walk.
What kind of
Bible says a man that finds a wife finds a good thing, man. And having a good wife around you that can like steer you in the right direction and put you in the right direction, that I mean, that's more valuable than gold, man. That's more valuable than gold.
trepidation when you made the comeback at 45?
Well, I started coming back, and most people, even my wife, said, don't do it. They're going to kill you.
Yeah.
And my children, I gathered them around and told them, look, I don't have any money. I got to find a way to make it for you guys. It's easy to say you have 5 kids, 6 kids, but the hard part is to take care of those kids. I truly wish I had been a golfer and going
It
back
would
to
have been
golfing.
easy to come
But I
back.
didn't know how to use those clubs. I tried, but I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
So I went back to boxing, and everyone laughed at me. It was a big joke. It really was a joke. And I kept laughing too, because it truly is a joke, but a wonderful thing to have a profession that you can stay off 10 years and come back, regain yourself, and be champion of the world. Then people
That
start to
was the
jump on
craziest
board and
comeback.
say, maybe he can do it, especially after you've done it.
Give us your take on some of the famous boxers. What's their strengths?
I look back even in past days to the great Joe Louis. Evidently, he was the most well-trained athlete ever. You get in the ring and do the same thing over and over. He was champion of the world for over a decade. And Archie Moore was light heavyweight champ of the world. And that's one in this area here, George Chavello.
Yeah.
He didn't make it to be champ of the world, but he was the toughest chin I ever faced in my life. I was so afraid of him that I wouldn't win the match. And they stopped the fight, and he was looking like I had him, and I was looking like he had me. But it goes back to, there are a lot of great champions I've faced. Joe Frazier, the great Muhammad Ali, probably one of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. Not the greatest boxer, but the greatest human being.
How do
It's
you
a big dick,
explain? I
Pharaoh.
mean, you physically and mentally are so sharp, and boxing, it's a tremendous toll it takes on the physical body. How do you explain it?
I was just happy to have that sport, and I never looked on boxing as something to play with. And the years I dedicated myself to boxing, I didn't drink or smoke cigarettes or anything. I tried to eat right, but the occasional banana split didn't hurt anything. But basically, my second time around, if I tell you I did anything, I'd be lying. God did it.
And that's amazing. He gave God the glory in everything that he did. And I do believe God truly had his hand over George Foreman's life, rededicating his life to Christ and God pulling him back, and then him coming back at 45 is insane. Anybody that knows boxing, most boxers peak in their 30s. And when you're about 30, 35 in boxing, you're old. You're old. So to come back at 45 and become champion of the world, there was nothing but God behind him. And then he used the rest of his life. Even the movie that he came out with was presenting and putting God on Front Street. And he was an evangelist truly for the kingdom of God, and truly was an example, I feel like, what a man of God should live, and how we should conduct ourselves. So I just wanted to read some verses here about that, about how George lived his life. And want to read a verse starting in Romans 4, 8 through 13. For Christ died and lived again for this very purpose, that he might be Lord both of the dead and of the living. For if we live, we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. So then, whether we live or we die, we belong to the Lord. And George showed that in his life. I'm going to read from Mark 8 and 36 as well. For what shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his soul? George showed us that what was it worth for George to have all these money, be a champion of the world, have everything at his access, and have the whole world, but yet lose his soul. And when he was in outer darkness, what God showed him, that it was not worth it, guys. Having everything in the world, but not having God, is not worth it. It will never be worth it. Your salvation, your relationship with God is worth it. It's worth it. Everything in this world will pass away. Everything is temporary. Your life, your clothes, your jewelry, whatever it is, your job, whatever status you think you have or accolades you think you've accomplished in this world, you will be forgotten. But your salvation and your soul will live on. Do not allow yourself to leave this earth and be separate eternity from God because you're chasing temporary things. Chase the eternal. Guys, I just want to play just to commemorate George. I'm gonna play just a little bit of just a highlight reel of his life and his career. Guys, just show George some love, just some tribute to him. We're gonna play a little bit here on the screen. I'm pulling it up now.
You would continue boxing even if you would lose over there.
I beg your pardon.
You don't think about losing?
Foreman having a very good round. Reggie is being battered in Foreman's corner. Joe's about to go down and through. Right there, Young was hurt. Right there, Young was hurt by a Foreman left. Magnificent right hand shot. It happened. It happened.
And I'm gonna end this off with one verse here, guys. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord of the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Timothy 2:4. Guys, that's what we're all working for. Fight the good fight. Fight the good fight here, like George did. And so, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up today's podcast. This is episode 35 of the King Josiah TV podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for sticking along. We're going to keep pushing these videos out. If this video encouraged you or you had a comment, go ahead and drop it below. Let's have the discussion. I know these are controversial subjects, guys, so I want to hear your input. Go ahead and drop a comment below. Hit the like button. Share it to somebody you might think that might have an interest in these sort of topics or sort of subjects that helps the channel grow. Again, guys, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, hit the follow button before we get out of here. If you're listening on YouTube, if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, guys. I will see you next week.
When my salvation on me like it's a helmet. The way it's to sin is death for send you to hell quick. Wanted to be all about me, God, I was selfish. I was rebellious, but you didn't let me